Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christina McGuire, and I'm the internship coordinator with the Career Center. And today I am joined by Dr. Sakina Ali, who is the Senior Regional Recruiter with the Peace Corps. And she's going to talk a little bit more about the different opportunities. So Dr. Sakina, take it away.
Привіт! Мене звати Sakina Ali. Дуже приємно and добрий день. That was Ukrainian language. I said, hello, my name is Sakina Ali, and it's nice to meet you and hope you're having a good afternoon. So I would like to start with what Peace Corps is. Peace Corps is a government agency that sends volunteers abroad for 27 months to do lots of exciting grassroots projects alongside community members. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and then tell you about my experiences and then tell you a little bit about more how you can get involved or apply in the future. All right, so first of all, I served in Ukraine in 2004, 2005, and I was an education volunteer. So we have 6 different sectors, which I'll be talking about a little bit later, but I was in the education sector. And in the education sector, I worked in a recertification institute where I helped train teachers at every 5 years, they had to go through a recertification process. So I help with that recertification. Along my time, it is a 40 hours full-time work experience that you're getting. But sometimes, the courses that I taught didn't complete my 40 hours. So I had other secondary projects within the community. So I got to know the community. I would do movie nights and conversation clubs and different things within the community and come up with other projects and other things that they needed. But since my primary position was education, I worked a lot with teachers and worked with them on whatever their needs were. And also I graduated from UC San Diego and went to a master's program at American University, which was completely free because I did the Peace Corps. So I'll tell you about that too. And I got my doctorate in educational leadership at Cal Poly Pomona, which also I got some benefits because I was in Peace Corps. So I lived in a little town in Ternopil. When I say little town, it's right here by the arrow. It was about 200,000 people because we were in the capital of that area. So it wasn't that little, but it was about 200,000 people. And that's because we were in a university town. We were on the western part of the Ukraine, and a lot of people asked me, well, how's everything going there, especially right now because of the war? Well, luckily, most of the people on this west side are safe and away from many of the border towns to Russia. So they're doing good. I'm still close to my host family. I talk to them all the time, make sure that they're okay as well. So we are in over 60 different countries all around the world. This is our newest map. We've just added Vietnam, which is exciting. It's the first time we're going to go into volunteering into Vietnam. But as you can see, we have a lot of need in Africa. And Peace Corps only serves in countries that have invited us to come and have asked us for special projects that we could complete with them. So this is a little bit about the first 3 months of service. So I did tell you that it was a 27-month program, and it's 27 months because we really want to have people integrate into the communities. Our mission for Peace Corps is promoting friendship and world peace. And that is the whole premise of our program. And the best way to do that is to really, really jump into that community and really be able to experience that community and get to know people in that community. So that first 3 months is language training, culture training, safety and health training, and also job training. So you learn a little bit more about what you're going to be doing during that time. And you learn all the ways to be able to successfully integrate into that community that you'll be serving. So these pictures are some of my experiences. So the one on the bottom right is my language classroom. We're learning Ukrainian 6 hours a day, and it was very intense. The first 3 months to me are very exciting because it's new and I get to learn about the culture and the people, and we're learning the language, and there's all these all the stimulus coming at you, and it's really exciting and goes by super fast. The bottom left picture is actually just a close-up of the bottom right, because it was always by the heater. One thing I remember about Ukraine is that it was always cold. So for me, I was always the one person from California that was always wearing sweatshirts and jackets constantly. And then the top left is our host family. So this is my whole group the whole group on the right. We hosted a family dinner with our host family for Thanksgiving. And so this was one of those nights where we had all of us together and just celebrating Thanksgiving with them. The next picture is my host family. So the bottom right is my host mother and host sister. They were amazing. My host mother was just a godsend. Like, she helped me with everything. She helped me with the language. She helped me with communicating with members in the community. To the point where I felt like I was a child again at sometimes, because when you're learning a language, it's kind of like you're starting fresh. So she would actually walk to work and in the morning, and I would walk with her part way on my way to my classes, and she would point out things on the side of the street and help me memorize different words. She would help me count. She would just say, okay, let's count today. And we would count on the way to on the way to her work. And then we would say the days of the week, the days of the month, all of those things, or the months of the year. So it was really helpful. And then she also taught me how to cook with the Ukrainian like crops and what they have vastly available in Ukraine. So I made a lot of soups. I learned how to make borscht, and which was one of my favorites, and she would help me. But before we sat down and ate, she would give me a sticky pad and say, hey, Sakina, all in Ukrainian, saying, okay, now you have to label everything in this house. And once you've labeled everything and used all of those sticky notes, then you can come down and eat. So I learned how to be really quick. She really helped me with my language in that sense, because I wanted to eat. So we would go around the house, and I'd label the wall, and I'd label the couches, and I label the floor and everything that I could see. And so that really helped, and it was really nice. And then her daughter was like my sister. She was the same age as I. Actually, she was, I think, a year younger than me. And she was married. So her husband is up in the top right picture. And they were married and lived at his parents' home, but they would come over every day. So I got to really get to know them as well. And I felt I felt like I had built a community with them. And then in the top right picture, there's also my language facilitator. She's the one who helped me learn the language, and the other volunteers that I was with. And then top left is just a lot of dancing. We did a lot of dancing in Ukraine. They love to sing and dance. And so that was me and my host sister dancing. And then the bottom left is actually my second host family. So after the first 3 months, we go to our actual site where we're going to be working. So in Ukraine, I was very lucky to have a second host family. And that second host family was at my site, and they helped me integrate into learning about the bus system and how to get from one place to the other, and where community members gathered and things like that. So they were very helpful for when I went to site. So some of the things that I loved about Ukraine is some of the food and the singing. So this is a picture of one of the events where they came out and sang, and they're wearing traditional clothing. Another thing I got to experience was Easter. I always grew up in California. Easter just Easter egg hunts and a great lunch with the family and friends. But in Ukraine, there was a huge ceremony where the priest would go around and bless all the baskets for the year. So that was really interesting to be a part of that and learn about their culture and how they celebrate Easter as well. And then my host mother, from the second host mother, she actually worked at a chocolate factory. And I can't believe I did not know the whole few months that I was with her. I learned like the last day, and she's like, oh, well, I'll teach you how to make chocolates. And I thought, that's wonderful. So we got a group of volunteers together and we learned how to make chocolates and tarts actually in this picture. And then this was shashlik in the summer. There's a very short summer, but it's super hot and warm, and you always go out into the wilderness and camp and have bonfires and of course have barbecues. And so this is shashlik, or the beef kebabs that they would make that were just delicious. So going back to the Peace Corps. Peace Corps was founded in 1961 by President Kennedy. And since then, the mission has always remained the same: to promote world peace and friendship by fulfilling three main goals. The first goal is to help the people of interested countries in meeting their needs for trained individuals. So I want to emphasize interested, because we only go to interested countries that have asked us to come there and do specific jobs, like I mentioned earlier. And then the second two goals are really a bi-directional learning process, where you're really exchanging and building those relationships with each other, where you're learning as much as you can about their culture and bringing that back to Americans and sharing what you've learned, but then also giving as much to that community and teaching them about Americans and your experience as an American. So it's really exciting to kind of really build those relationships there. So we have been in over 142 countries to date. I think 143 now that we've added Vietnam. We are currently in about 60 countries, 61 countries. But when I say currently, because of COVID, we had to evacuate, and now we're back. Since April, we've been getting people back. We have about 600 volunteers out around the world right now, whereas before COVID, we had about a little bit over 7,000 volunteers. We have a huge alumni group, 240,000 people that have served in the Peace Corps. This is kind of our breakdown of how many males to females and ages. You can serve at any age. So most people serve after they have gotten their undergraduate degree. So 95% of our volunteers have at least an undergraduate degree. And so that means it's something that you want to think about as you're applying and getting ready for your application, of what you can do to make your application stand out in the next couple of years. So, and then we have quite a bit of diversity, and you can serve as a married couple, which is really nice, because I served with a couple, but the man here, he was 87 years old when I met him in Ukraine, and he is from the US and served when he started his service when he was 80 and stayed quite a bit of time. So John was a very good volunteer. And so just kind of illustrating that you can do it at any age, whether you do it, right after college or you do it later on in life. So I mentioned earlier that there's 6 sectors, and these are the 6 different sectors. I'm going to go into a little bit more depth about them in the next couple of slides. All right, so our largest sector is education, which is the one that I served in, and I did that third point where I was a TEFL teacher trainer. But we have English teachers, we also have literacy volunteers, and we have math and science teachers as well. And this is our largest sector because many of our countries really want educators to come out there and help educate their populations. So this is our largest sector. Our next sector is agriculture, and agriculture volunteers are highly coveted as well. They're really there to improve the diversity and productivity and sustainability of agriculture production in that country. They help generate agriculture related income, and they also increase their dietary diversity. So sometimes this coincides with the health program, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The third area, or the third sector, is community economic development. And what do? They actually help with community-based development projects. They help with financial and employment skills and development. So usually people in this sector are people with business administration background or MBAs or experience with their own businesses. So they might help with marketing, business plans, IT help, lots of different things. So you might work with a particular women's group and helping them create their own businesses, or you might even work with farmers to make their farming more business related. So there's that group, which is pretty large as well. And the next group is environmental, and they kind of go along with agriculture sometimes too, because they work on soil and water improvement. They do tree planting, nurseries, and forestation. There's a coastal resource volunteer that helps with recoralization. There's water sanitation and hygiene, or WASH is what we call them. So people in that area. So if you're really interested in youth in environmental work, that would be the sector for you. And we also do camps where we really involve the youth in the future environment possibilities. And right now we're also starting new positions that really are helping with climate change as well. Our next sector is the health sector. The health sector is actually our second largest sector. So we're in many different countries with that as well. And you work on maternal and newborn child health care. We do advocacy projects for HIV/AIDS, as well as malaria or hygiene practices. And we really work on youth health and well-being. So those people who might have health as their background or desire to do in the future, whether you want to become a nurse or a doctor or be a health administrator, this is a great opportunity for those people who want to do go further in their career in health sector. What's great is, one of the things that I like to say is that we have lots of programs that we partner with afterwards. So there's a lot of organizations that want our health volunteers, and it's a really good pipeline into getting into different positions. And then the last sector is our youth development sector. This is our actual smallest sector, so it's the most competitive to get into because we don't have as many positions. But it's a fun, different position where it's a lot like, I compared it to kind of like a YMCA director or someone who works at the YMCA, because they co-facilitate youth groups, they help mentor and support children in all different ways in life, leadership, employment strategies. They also facilitate youth participation, volunteers of service learning in the school or community. So service projects, they work with them on doing that. And they also co-teach. They might be teaching at a school, in a school setting, but it's really to learn about life and employment skills. So there's a lot of benefits of being in Peace Corps. First of all, I mean, I was telling you early, all that, all the career skills and training you get, meaning you learn a language and learn about the culture, but you also, everything is paid for. The reason we call it volunteer is because it's a government agency that fully pays for it, but it's paying your living stipend, your housing, your medical and dental coverage. If you have any student loans, all of those can be deferred during that time period. And also you get vacation. So you do get 24 days off a year, which I love because I got to visit some of the other countries surrounding where I served. So you do have time off to go and explore and do things. You meet a lot of other volunteers and you find time to enjoy your off time with them. But if you also wanted to come back to the US, you can use that time to come back to the US as well. So there's lots of opportunities there. Safety and health is our #1 concern. You might hear this many, many times. So we do have medical officers available 24/7. We have security officers available 24/7. We have a lot of trained staff on anything that could go wrong, that, you know, to be there to help out. We do community immersion training, meaning at the very beginning, we show you like how best to integrate into your community. There's always US government support. So you are registered through the US Embassy. So they know that they're there, that you're there. And if anything were to happen, they can pull you out, and there's dedicated victims advocacy. So if anything does go wrong, that they have lawyers and support, mental health support if needed. So this is all to say that we want to make sure that your life there in that country is safe and you're happy while you're serving. So we have all the support for you. And then there's even more exciting for me were some of the benefits after serving. So you get more than $10,000 and transition funds, or we call them readjustment allowance. So a way to readjust to life back in the US. And then we have graduate school benefits. So I showed you earlier that I went to American University. My graduate school was completely free. We partner with over 300 programs across the US that will give you 25% to 100% tuition off their programs if you complete the Peace Corps prior to attending there. So that's a wonderful perk. Also federal employment advantages. So earlier when I was saying, health sector has all these advantages if you're into the health program, but it's actually for every sector, there's advantages. But for example, CDC, which we've heard a lot in the last couple of years, they hire first return Peace Corps volunteers, which is great. So you kind of get dibs. So Peace Corps has this program called non-compete eligibility. You're awarded that non-compete eligibility, NCE status, where when you apply for any federal government position, your resume is looked at first, just like veterans, and then Peace Corps, return Peace Corps volunteers, and then general public. So you have kind of a door into that world as well. And then of course, in general, there's public service loan forgiveness for anyone who works for state or federal government. And it's a 10-year process that you work with them. But with Peace Corps, your Peace Corps experience of 27 months cuts that down to a little bit under 8 years. So that's kind of nice too. And if you need healthcare afterwards, you have access to that as well. All right, so a little bit more about my Peace Corps experience. I was there in the Orange Revolution time. So I, at least, as you guys know, right now there's a war going on in Ukraine, but when I went, it was a peaceful revolution. It was the most peaceful that they've had ever in history. Not one person got hurt. So it was just, I had to go see it. I wasn't supposed to go out there, but I had to go to the Capitol. So when I got out of the train station, I got a glimpse of it. So I just saw how peaceful it was, and I just want to show here. But also going back to safety and security concerns, I was called every 2 hours to ask like how I was doing, what was happening, do I feel safe? And there was a backup plan just in case something broke out and war broke out to get me out of there right away. So that backup plan is always there. And we used that backup plan when we evacuated everyone during COVID. All 7,000 plus volunteers were returned back to the US within a week when COVID hit. So that was a big accomplishment. We do have very good evacuation plans if needed. And again, that's all about safety and security. So there's 2 ways to apply, and I'm just showing you some of them. You can apply directly to a position. I know this is kind of an outdated slide with those positions, but the positions are pretty much written up the same, and you can apply directly to a position. So say you saw this Timor-Leste position and you're like, oh, that's perfect, that's what I want to do, that's where I want to go. You can apply directly to that position, or you can apply to where where you're needed most. So those are the two options, where you're needed most or to directly to a position. And working with a recruiter, I would talk to you through that a little bit more and kind of go over that, as well as your resume and motivation statement. So those are some of the things that you would need to go through the application process. And I review your resume and motivation statement because I want to make sure that you get through. So I'll talk to you about that. And once you have applied, I also help with the interview process as well, because again, my goal is to get you through into the Peace Corps and having this experience of a lifetime. So this is some of my experiences. Again, this is the same lake in both pictures. Once, pre-frozen and once when it was frozen over. And one thing that I got to learn to do was ice fishing. I never thought I would ever do ice fishing, but I learned how to ice fish. So all those people on the ice, sitting on the ice, they're sitting on these buckets and just out there ice fishing and on that same lake. So that was pretty exciting. I did what I loved about the city that I was in, there was a lake and there was water, and I felt like kind of like I was a little closer to home since I am from California and we're close to the water out here. And then this is actually a picture looking out from the window of my apartment. I was right next to a school, so I always woke up when the bell rang in the morning if I wasn't already up, and got to see them start their day, and the students outside the class outside would line up and then go into their classes. And it was really interesting to see that, because I remember that when I was in kindergarten, like in elementary school, where we'd line up outside and then go to our teachers would take us to classes. So some similarities that they have there as well. And then this is a slide really to show like some of the things that I did and who I did them with. So on the top left is my counterpart. So everyone has a counterpart who kind of who might have actually applied to have you there as a volunteer. So she was the English language teacher trainer for that whole Oblast of Ternopil. And so she really needed help. And so she's the one who applied to have a volunteer. And what I did was I worked with her and we figured out what are the needs of that community, what do the teachers need? And we created a plan together on how we can go to each school and do different kind of workshops for the teachers. And that was she was really helpful. And I was able to leave a teacher training manual with her. So that was a big part of my experience, was her and her family actually. And then on the top right is actually a place that we started a community garden. So this is before we built it. This was the space we had. And then we got the whole community together and built a garden there. And I don't have an after picture, but that was the before. And then on the bottom left is we had a community Shakespeare play that we had put in, and that was some of the people in the play. And then the bottom right was in the summers, I had some time, so I did some leadership camps. And so this was one of the days that we were on the leadership camp at the beginning of summer when it was still a little cool. Okay, so the top right is my counterpart's family. So I spent a lot of time on like holidays with them, and it always involved food and vodka because that's what they drink in Ukraine. So that was pretty exciting. Lots of food. We sat around the table and chatted, and the dinner was a 4-hour ordeal sometimes because you just sit and chat, and you get different plates of food would come out at different times. And then I was very lucky. My parents are on the bottom left. They came out to visit me in Peace Corps Ukraine, and they actually basically stayed a little bit longer than I thought they would, which was nice to have them. They fell in love with all the friends that I had made and the people that they met when I was at work, that they stayed a little bit longer. And my dad actually volunteered at the local university and helped with English language teaching as well. And then my mom would actually give cooking lessons and things like that. It was really exciting. So they got to live that little part of my life with me, which is really nice. So I know I told you have 24 days off a year. Some people use that to come home, but because my family came to me, I felt like I could just stay and, travel to other areas and explore different areas. All right. Well, if you want to get involved in Peace Corps, you can reach out to me and you can connect with me at any time. And I will put my email address in the chat box. But this concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Thank you so much for listening.